everybody. Welcome to the Mindful Moments podcast with Sasha
and April.
So, being in the midst of SAT season and it coming up so soon, literally right around the corner, March 5th, everyone is in a frenzy right now, scrambling to study. Yeah, we sure are. We are all just stressing out about the score that we're going to get and studying for it because it, quote-unquote, determines whether or not we get into college, which is a little
feels like it's
controversial.
going to determine our whole trajectory of our future.
Yeah, it feels like the weight is all on our shoulders right now. It is. Whew. So,
what even is the SAT?
Well, I'm so glad you asked. So, fancy words. It stands for the Scholastic Aptitude Test, which is pretty much just saying it's a standardized test which measures a student's readiness and preparation for college, how much they're gonna succeed, how they're gonna do in the future.
Okay, so it's scored out of 1,600, but what's considered a good score? Like, what should we strive for?
So scores do vary just because everybody is different, and the day of it's different for everyone. But scores that are considered good and that are most widely accepted by colleges will be a 1,200 ranging to a 1,400.
And how are they scored?
So they are scored depending on two sections, which is reading and math. So there's one portion, which is the reading, and it's split into two modules. And split into two, it's 54 questions.
Oh, wow.
And you have to do it in a time of 64 minutes. So that's like an hour and 4 minutes. And then for your math section, it's 70 minutes for math. And you only have 44 questions, which is also split up into two modules.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So 3 hours long with a 10-minute break. That seems very stressful to me.
It does. That's one of the, poor sides of SAT. It's one of the cons, which makes it pretty controversial. It makes it a controversial topic because it gives you a time limit. It's hard to work to your fullest potential and answer the questions the best you can, I feel like.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like the time limit could really
put a lot of pressure.
Yeah. And really
rush you.
Really affect the score you might get. If someone had 5 hours, they might score a 16.5 million.
I don't think that's a score, April, but I love it. So, another reason for its controversy is that it only measures a certain area of knowledge, which is your reading and your math, and it only measures it to a certain level. So, if you're doing excellent, you're going to get a good score. But if you haven't necessarily learned certain aspects that are on it, it's going to be harder to get a good score like that.
Yeah, it kind of has almost a bias. If you don't know the topics on the test, you might do poorly. Even if a rocket scientist didn't know basic algebra, but he knows quantum physics, he's not going to score as well. So it doesn't really show intelligence, rather just what you're expected to know as a high schooler, which isn't bad.
And you're tailored to, you have to know the SAT format in order to get a good score, I feel like. It's not what you know, it's how, you know how to do
Apply it almost.
Yeah, for sure.
And I've heard that's a very controversial
topic,
aspect to it. Some people feel that the SAT is kind of geared towards people who can afford private tutors or can practice the format of the test.
Have that ability, for sure.
Which could be a fault of the test, as students who don't have those available to them won't be able to succeed or feel like they won't succeed.
I agree. But there are some positive aspects to it, some being that it can give those who are genuinely smart and hardworking the opportunity to display their intelligence and to colleges when it comes to your score, and it tends to weed out the people who have different methods of getting the grades that they get, so that colleges can really compare you to others and really see the ones who make it to the top, not just because of your GPA or your grades, but it's almost like a second chance to show the true intelligence of high school students.
Yeah, and I think that's a really strong pro, is the fact that it is standardized. Everybody in the United States, at least, is taking this SAT, and when colleges are looking at applicants, they know that everyone has taken this test, as opposed to GPA, where it's like, if you had an easier teacher in a class, you might have a higher GPA than a different school.
So it's unbiased in a way, but also,
it does allow
also bias.
A smooth comparison between applicants.
Yeah, for sure. But that can also cause lots of stress because you are expected to know, you're expected to know this format. You're expected to know, like, how to do these crazy math problems. And some people haven't made it to that mathematic level yet. And it's just, it's very stressful for a lot of people. And it does matter. There's a reason to be stressed.
Affect college applications.
But college applications still look at things like your grades and your GPA.
Okay. So it does affect your college applications. However, colleges do look at your GPA, your extracurriculars, your essay.
Yeah.
There's so many components to it. And some colleges are even test optional. So this test doesn't make your future or break your future, but it could help. So you should definitely try, but don't beat yourself up over it.
Yeah, and there are also other tests like the ACT, which is some people that aren't very strong in SAT are a lot stronger in their ACT or vice versa. So it really just applies to you as a person, who you are and what day you're having.
Yes.
So lots of colleges in the state of Florida, where we're from, take the super score of your SAT, which means you take the SAT twice or 3 times, however many times you take it. They will take the highest score of your reading and the highest score of your math out of all the times that you've taken it and put it together and take that as your SAT score.
That's nice.
And it gives, like, I feel like it gives a much wider range of opportunity to lots of kids. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, for sure.
Getting more
I love that.
versatility.
Actually didn't know about that. Thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome. Learn something new every day.
So we've talked about scores of the SAT and what it is, but how do you study for it?
So when it comes to the SAT, off of personal experience, it is really, really important that not only do you know the material and are relatively familiar with the material, but you have to know this format. This format of the test is unlike any other standardized test. It's very specific, and you have to be familiar with the types of questions that they're asking, the order that it's going in, just so that when you get there, you're very confident in what you're doing. Confidence is very important in tests like this.
Yes, and I mean, when you think about it, somebody's making these test questions and answers. So the answers are most likely, most of the time at least, going to be answers you could get just doing a minor mistake. So
what should I study
kind of have
for
to work
the
around
math
that.
section of the SAT?
I would tend to focus on algebra, your basic geometry, some data analysis that does pop up sometimes, and just applying your concepts to real-world scenarios, like problem solving, I guess. And then what should I know and, like, study for the SAT reading portion?
So for the SAT reading portion, you'd want to be able to make inferences, know some vocabulary, textual evidence, author's purpose, and with all of this, it really comes from comprehension. So with vocabulary, you don't necessarily need to know a whole dictionary, but rather picking things out of a text.
Like how things are utilized.
Yeah, to make an inference of what it means.
Yeah,
Okay.
and also sometimes there are punctuation questions asking about transition words and just things like that. So just be familiar with, like, English standard language, I think is...
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, a good thing to be familiar with.
Yeah.
For sure. And then there are tons of options to take practice tests that are almost identical to the ones that are actually administered. And some of the applications that we are personally familiar with are the application Blue Book, which gives you, like, the exact SAT questions from, like, year or two prior, I believe. And then Khan Academy offers great lessons for just, like, the different modules and questions that have been seen in the past and maybe seen in the future.
Yeah. So definitely very helpful to practice the structure of it and what topics will come up. Things like that really help prepare you for the test.
Yeah.
And even might help calm anxiety to walk into the test and recognize the formatting.
Yeah, and be familiar with it, so it causes a little less stress and in turn causes you to do better, yeah.
Especially if you practice your SATs with possibly a timer.
Yeah.
You'll be used to having that time restraint, and you'll know when you sit down you have enough time.
Also, another thing to recognize is if you're taking the test and it's getting harder, every module that you're going through, whether it's reading or writing, or reading or math,
Reading or math,
that means that you're doing better. That means that you did very good on this first module, this first portion, and they're giving you harder questions to test, like, how high your knowledge can go, which is an interesting
That's a
fact
good
that
thing.
I learned. Yeah,
Be
it's
proud
pretty
if it's
cool.
hard.
So, anything else you want to add?
maybe we could talk about SAT as an IB student.
Yep. I agree.
So, me and Sasha...
No!
Sasha and I, sorry, I need
job.
to get my SAT prep on. Okay. Sasha and I are both IB students. So, right now we're currently in the process of making IAs, editing IAs, churning in IAs.
Doing EEs. So many
EEs,
acronyms.
extended essays, CAS projects.
Basically just huge
everything.
projects that we need to dedicate so much time to.
Yes. And then the pressure of the tests that we know are coming up. So SL students this year are going to be taking their test soon after spring break. So they might even start studying now.
Yeah, we have
it's only 2 weeks about away.
Yeah, we have our SAT like right before spring break, so it's like we get no break. We go boom,
no
boom,
break.
boom. But yeah, so I agree. It can be pretty stressful as an IB student because we do not get kind of that break. I feel like we don't get that.
Yeah.
We get that buildup of stress. You know.
It might
That's
be
like
hard to even
transferring.
use their spring break as a break.
Yeah.
If they want to use it as
especially after
studying.
that SAT.
Yes, of course.
But leading up to it, it's really important to just remember that you need to stay calm. So with all this stress piling up from SAT, the preparation and studying that we need to be doing, it's important to just relax.
Mm-hmm. So a quote that we really feel that is applying to our situation right now is,
Mindful moment of your day is to understand that it is far better to confront a situation and deal with the momentary stress than it is to ignore it and hope it goes away. And this is by Carrie David Richards, The Joy of Less, Book 1.
to me, this feels like we shouldn't procrastinate our studying.
Yeah, it means,
Yeah.
to me as well, it means that we should just, like, go in it head on, be ready to just embrace all of whatever is thrown at us, and just know that no matter what happens on the other side, we will come out as one.
Procrastinating in fear of failure, procrastinating in fear of whatever it is, or procrastinating just because you just don't want to do it, is just going to lead to future anxiety and increased stress, knowing that you wasted all that time, and even guilt, which doesn't feel good either.
Yeah, knowing that you could have done something, but you didn't. So take this as your sign to stop procrastinating and start studying for that SAT.
Do what you can now so you don't have something to blame later.
Yes, yes.
Okay, happy SAT season. We hope you do well. We know you'll do well.
And
Adios.
thanks for listening. Bye.